Welcome back to Talk Tensors. The place where we really get our caffeine fix, thinking about machine learning research.
That's right.
And today we are going to be diving deep into a paper all about a challenge that's becoming more and more important. And that is managing all those risks that come with large language models.
Right.
These AI systems that can generate text and translate languages, write different kinds of creative content, and answer your questions in a way that's actually informative.
Yeah, absolutely. So the paper we're looking at today is titled Supervision Policies Can Shape Long-Term Risk Management in General Purpose AI Models.
Okay.
And it's authored by Manuel Sabrian, Amelia Gomez, and David Fernandez-Jorca.
Right.
And they take this really interesting look at how we can handle this potential flood of risk reports that are going to come as these powerful AI systems become even more a part of our lives.
Yeah, they really do paint a vivid picture of the future, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they predict that by 2030, we could be seeing over 2,500 AI-related incidents every month.
Yeah.
That's
a lot.
a lot of potential problems
Yeah.
to keep track of.
It is.
So where did they even get that number from?
Well, their prediction is based on data from the OECD AI Incidence Monitor,
Okay.
which tracks reported incidents related to the use of AI systems.
Okay.
So it's not just like some random number,
Wow.
it's actually based on real-world data and trends.
So that makes their findings even more compelling then, right?
Absolutely.
With all of these potential incidents on the horizon, how do they propose we manage them all?
So they focus on the role of what they call AI supervisory entities.
Okay.
So think like government agencies, industry groups, ethics boards,
Right.
and the policies that they could use to prioritize which incidents get addressed first.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
They actually propose 4 different policies
Okay.
and then run simulations to see how they would play out in practice.
Exactly.
So can you walk us through these policies?
Yeah, absolutely. So they start with the simplest approach, which they call non-prioritized.
Okay.
So imagine like a queue where every single risk report gets added to the back, and then incidents are addressed just in the order they were reported.
Okay.
So first come, first served.
Gotcha. That makes sense as a starting point.
Yeah.
So what about the other policies?
So the next one is random.
Oh,
Pretty self-explanatory. Incidents are selected randomly for review.
okay.
It might seem kind of strange at first, but it actually serves as a useful baseline for comparison.
Right.
By comparing the outcomes of all 4 policies, the authors can show the strengths and weaknesses of each approach.
So it's kind of like a control group in a scientific experiment.
Exactly.
Right. You need that baseline to see if the other approaches are actually doing anything.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the third policy is where things get a bit more strategic.
Okay.
It's called priority-based.
Right.
Here, the focus is on tackling the highest risk incidents first.
Okay.
And they define risk based on factors like accessibility, meaning how easy it is for someone to exploit that particular vulnerability and potential damage, the severity of the negative consequences if that risk were to actually occur.
So a risk that's both easy to exploit and could cause a lot of harm would get a high priority score.
Exactly.
And those would be the ones they focus on first.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What about that last policy?
So the fourth policy is called diversity prioritized.
Okay.
This one tries to strike a balance between addressing those high priority, high impact risks while also ensuring that a wider range of potential problems are covered.
Gotcha.
They don't want to just focus on one type of risk and then miss other important issues.
Right. It's like you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
You need to have like a diversified portfolio of risk mitigation strategies.
Exactly.
So they've got these 4 policies, but how do they actually test them?
They created a simulation to see how each policy would perform in managing this hypothetical influx of risk reports.
Okay.
And the simulation, it's not just some random guess.
Right. They actually factor in things like the type of risk reported, the potential harm, and even how easy it is to exploit the vulnerability.
So they're trying to make it like a realistic scenario.
Exactly.
They want to see how these policies would work in a world where AI is generating, thousands of these potential risks every month.
Yeah. And they even draw a parallel to the implementation of GDPR.
Yeah, okay.
The data privacy regulation in the European Union.
Yeah.
Remember how there was this huge surge in data access requests when GDPR first went into effect?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it overwhelmed a lot of organizations because they just weren't prepared for that volume.
Yeah, I remember that it's a good example of how even like well-intentioned regulations can have unintended consequences if we're not careful.
Exactly.
So what did they find when they ran these simulations? Which policy performed the best?
So as you might expect, the priority-based and diversity-prioritized policies were generally more effective at tackling those high-impact incidents.
But there's a catch. Yeah, there is a catch. They tended to favor reports from experts and crowdsourced initiatives,
Okay.
which means they might not be as good at catching risks identified by everyday users, the people who are actually interacting with these large language models on like a daily basis.
So while they're good at identifying those big, potentially catastrophic risks, they might miss some of the smaller, more nuanced problems that could still have a significant impact
Exactly.
on people's lives.
Yeah, think about it. Who's more likely to encounter like a subtle bias in an AI assistant?
Right.
Or to notice that a language model is generating, harmful content in a new and unexpected way?
Right.
It's probably going to be someone who's using that system all the time.
Right.
Not necessarily an expert who's just studying it from a distance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But why do these policies favor expert reports in the first place?
Right?
Is it just because they're assuming that experts are more knowledgeable?
Well, it's a little more nuanced than that.
All right.
Remember how the simulation assigns those attributes, accessibility and potential damage to each risk report?
Yeah.
Well, they model those attributes differently based on the source of the report.
Okay, so an expert report is treated differently than, say, a report from a random user.
Exactly.
Okay.
So in their model, they're assuming that experts are more likely to identify severe systemic risks,
Okay.
even if those risks aren't as easy to exploit.
Gotcha.
So even if a risk is really difficult to trigger, if it has the potential to cause widespread harm, it's likely to get a high priority score.
Right.
And who's more likely to spot those kinds of risks?
Experts.
Experts, of course.
I see where this is going.
Yeah.
It creates a kind of feedback loop.
Exactly.
If we build systems that assume that expert reports are more likely to be about high-impact risks,
Yeah.
then we're going to end up prioritizing those reports, which will then encourage more expert reporting.
Exactly. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
And the authors are concerned that this could lead to a skewed view of the overall risk landscape. We might miss crucial information from everyday users who are experiencing the impacts of these systems firsthand.
It's like the classic problem of sample bias.
Yeah.
If you're only looking at data from one particular group, you might miss important trends and patterns that exist in the larger population.
Exactly.
So how do the authors suggest we address this potential bias towards expert reports?
Well, they emphasize the importance of developing inclusive risk management practices that value input from a variety of sources, not just experts.
Okay.
They suggest exploring ways to make it easier for everyday users to report potential issues.
Right.
And they also highlight the potential of using AI itself to analyze and understand community feedback.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How could we use AI to help manage AI risks?
Right?
Isn't that a bit like putting the fox in charge of the henhouse?
It might seem a little counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but AI could actually be a really powerful tool for analyzing the vast amounts of data
Okay.
that are generated by online communities.
Right.
Think about all the conversations that are happening on social media, in forums, and on platforms like Reddit.
Yeah.
People are constantly sharing their experiences with AI systems, both good and bad.
Right. If we could tap into that collective intelligence,
Yeah,
we might be able to spot emerging issues and trends that we wouldn't otherwise see.
exactly.
But how do we ensure that this AI system doesn't just amplify existing biases?
That's a really crucial question.
Yeah.
We need to be very careful about how we design and train these systems.
Right.
We need to make sure they're trained on diverse data sets that represent a wide range of perspectives.
All right.
And we need to build in safeguards to prevent them from perpetuating harmful stereotypes or overlooking certain voices.
So it's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about the data we use to train it
Yeah,
and the human values that we embed in its design.
absolutely. It sounds like there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah.
But also a lot of responsibility.
Absolutely. The authors acknowledge that this is still an open area of research, but they believe it's a direction worth exploring.
Absolutely.
And they're not just theorizing, they actually put their ideas to the test
Yeah.
using real-world data.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, really? What kind of data did they use?
They used the wild chat data set,
Okay.
which contains over 1 million conversations with ChatGPT,
Wow.
including a significant number that were flagged as potentially risky.
Okay.
They wanted to see if their priority-based policy would be effective at catching those high-priority incidents in a real-world setting, and the results were encouraging.
So even though their model favors expert reports, it still performed well when tested against real-world data that includes input from a variety of users.
Exactly.
That's promising.
It suggests that with careful design and thoughtful implementation, we can develop systems that can effectively prioritize and manage AI risks while also valuing diverse perspectives.
It's fascinating how this paper connects all these seemingly disparate ideas.
It is.
They start with the challenge of managing AI risks. They delve into these dynamics of expert versus community input.
Yeah.
And they end up exploring the potential of using AI to analyze community feedback.
Wow.
It's like this multi-layered puzzle.
It's a testament to the complexity of this issue.
Yeah.
AI risk management isn't just a technical challenge. It's a social and ethical one as well.
Right.
We need to consider the impact of these systems on individuals, communities, and society as a whole.
Well said.
Yep.
It's a reminder that AI safety isn't just about preventing catastrophic outcomes.
Right.
It's also about ensuring that these technologies are used in a way that benefits everyone.
Absolutely.
And on that note, I think it's time for our Novel Notions segment.
Okay.
Let's explore some out-of-the-box research ideas inspired by this paper. All right, let's take a quick break and come back with some thought-provoking ideas for future research in AI risk management. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Talk Tensors. It is time for Novel Notions, the segment where we let our imaginations run wild and explore some really out-there research ideas inspired by the paper that we've been discussing. Are you ready for like a thought experiment?
Absolutely. I always enjoy our Novel Notions segment. It's a chance to step back from the specifics of the paper and think about those broader implications,
Exactly. So today's novel notion is this: could we create an AI system that can predict the emergence of like harmful AI before it's even created? Imagine an AI watchdog constantly scanning the horizon, looking for those potential trouble spots in the world of AI research.
That's a fascinating idea. It's like having an early warning system for AI risks. But where do we even begin with something like that?
Well, we would need to start by feeding this AI a massive amount of data.
Go ahead.
We're talking research papers, code repositories, online discussions, news articles, policy documents, anything that could shed light on the current state and the future trajectory of AI research.
It would need to be like a giant AI library, just constantly ingesting all this information about the world of AI, but ingesting the data, that's only the first step, right? We'd also need to develop algorithms that can actually make sense of all that information, identify patterns that are meaningful, and extrapolate those patterns into the future.
We would need to teach this AI system not just to understand words on a page, but to grasp the underlying motivations, the goals, and even like the potential biases of AI researchers and developers. It's almost like we need to create an AI that can understand the human mind with all its, complexities and contradictions.
That's a tall order, for sure. It would require breakthroughs in natural language processing, machine learning, and maybe even feels like sociology and psychology. But imagine if we could pull it off,
Yeah, we could potentially identify research areas that are more likely to lead to harmful outcomes and then steer those efforts in a safer, more beneficial direction.
Yeah.
Like it's a preemptive strike against AI risk. But of course, there are downsides we'd have to consider too.
Oh, absolutely. Who gets to decide what constitutes harmful AI? What criteria do we even use? And what happens if this AI system flags a research area as potentially dangerous? But other experts disagree. Do we halt research in that area? Do we impose restrictions? These are huge questions with no easy answers.
We're talking about potentially shaping the future of AI research based on the predictions of an AI system. That's a lot of power to give an algorithm, and we would need to proceed really carefully.
Definitely, we would need to establish really clear guidelines, robust oversight mechanisms, and like an ongoing dialogue with the entire AI research community. And even then, we would need to acknowledge that no prediction system is perfect, right? There will always be unexpected breakthroughs, unforeseen applications, and that potential for unintended consequences is always there.
So this AI watchdog wouldn't be a silver bullet. It would be more like a powerful tool that could help us identify those potential risks early on, but it would still require human judgment to interpret its findings and make informed decisions about how to proceed.
Exactly. And I think that's a key takeaway from this whole discussion today. AI is a tool, and the responsibility for using it wisely ultimately lies with us.
Well said. This novel notion has definitely given us a lot to think about. It really highlights how important it is to think ahead, anticipate potential challenges, and engage in those open and honest conversations about the future of AI.
And who knows, maybe someday this novel notion will become a reality. Maybe we will have AI systems that can help us steer AI development in a safer and more beneficial direction. But even then, it'll be crucial to remember that AI is a tool, and the responsibility for using it wisely ultimately lies with us.
And on that note, we've reached the end of another deep dive into the world of AI research. If you'd like to explore the paper we discussed today in more detail, be sure to check out the link in the show notes.
And remember, our Novel Notion segment is just for entertainment purposes only. We're just having a little fun exploring the possibilities. But who knows, maybe some of these ideas will spark some actual research or even inspire the next generation of AI innovators.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and stay curious.